Hey everybody, today I'm here to talk about a film that I've just seen. It's called Terrifier, and it's one of the newer horror films. Now, this is a film that is not for everybody. As a matter of fact, I'd say it's a slasher film that's not even for all slasher film fans. I mean, this is a really intense, gratuitous, guts and gore fest with loads of blood just for the sake of blood. But it's funny. I can't really understand it because I felt kind of funny about this movie. I kind of felt a little bit like guilty watching it. And it's not like I'm a stranger to these types of movies. I mean, my favorite movies in the genre of horror are the old black and white movies: Karloff, Lugosi, the Frankenstein monster, Dracula, the Wolfman, etc. And occasionally, I enjoy films like Friday the 13th, the Friday the 13th series, one of my favorite series of all time. I'm a big fan of Jason, and I'm wearing the original shirt here, which you can't see because I'm sitting close to the camera. But I would see every Friday the 13th film in the theater on the premiere of each installment after the first one. I didn't see the first one in the theaters, but from the second to the current day, I always see Friday the 13th and the Halloween films and even the Saw films and even the Hostel films. So the thing I'm trying to say is I'm not a stranger to these kinds of movies, and even though I prefer the old, more subtle approach, I kind of like these films when I let my hair down, so to speak, and know what I'm getting in for. You're not looking for Citizen Kane here, and when you're talking about horror, you're not looking for Rosemary's Baby, you're not looking for The Exorcist. You know what to expect. Yet Terrifier kind of really went too far, but there's a couple of things I did kind of admire about it. I'll get into those. Okay, first of all, Terrifier, I believe, was made in 2016 and didn't really get released until 2018. The director and the writer, Damien Leone. There's a character in here. He's the bad guy, the villain. He's called Art the Clown. Yes, he's a killer clown, and if you don't like killer clowns, this movie really isn't for you. Okay, I think they're grooming Art the Clown to be the new horror icon, the new Freddy, the new Jason, the new Michael Myers. Well, that remains to be seen. Now, he had a first appearance in a short film called All Hallows Eve, but I think this is his first major film, Art the Clown. And let me tell you, he's kind of creepy. Art the Clown has weird facial expressions and teeth, and he goes around waving his fingers and doing kind of pantomime stuff. I mean, he's a mime. He doesn't speak. He's silent like Jason and silent like Michael, but yet he's got enough childlike, creepy emotions when he does his atrocities to, really, unsettle you. Let's put it that way. Now, the story here isn't much of a story, as is the case with most of these types of films. It takes place on Halloween night, or should I say, after the Halloween celebrations are over, after everybody's partied, after people are done getting drunk and going home. And it's very dark, late at night. They don't give you a time. I'm thinking maybe it's definitely after midnight, 12 a.m., 1 a.m. It seems the early wee hours like that because there's nobody around. And we start out with two girls, and young women, and they're driving home. And as usual, these characters are not really drawn very well. One of them is like really like kind of like, I don't know, the queen type of person, and her friend, the brunette, is more kind of like a strong-willed, kind of like a tougher person. I kind of was getting a little interested in the personality and character of the first brunette, I call her, because there's another brunette later. But she was interesting. Unfortunately, spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. She doesn't last as long as I would have liked because I was rooting for her. At least there was something to someone to root for, which doesn't usually happen. Well, at the beginning of the film, these two girls stop off at a pizza parlor after partying, I guess, to get a couple of slices of pizza. And who comes into the pizza parlor but the very mysterious, unsettling, creepy, freaky Art the Clown? And he just sits down and starts looking at them and staring at them. And I gotta say, one of the things that I said in the beginning that I kind of admired about the film, I like the pizza parlor scene at the beginning. I think that was the one scene that really created a lot of tension and curiosity and wondering what's going to happen, how are they going to handle this. So I kind of like the pizzeria scene. That worked out pretty well. And then after that, let's just say Art the Clown, with all his, motions and trickery and surprise factors that he has to him, he also has a bag of tricks. The bag of tricks contains stuff like a hacksaw, cat o' nine tails, a gun, knives, all kinds of tools, and for no reason whatsoever, nothing that's explained. We don't know who this person is, why he's crazy, why he's insane, but he winds up gouging people's eyes out, slicing them up, mutilating them in a variety of different ways. And as I was saying earlier, I'm not a stranger to this because I used to go see the Friday the 13th films. And I was going, when I saw Friday the 13th, let's face it, I mean, I was in my late teens and 20s and during the run of those films, and I went there primarily for one reason and one reason only. Admittedly, unabashedly, I went with a bunch of like-minded fans just to see Jason Voorhees go after annoying teenagers and dispatch of them in very interesting ways. So yeah, this formula I like, but there's something about the way Art the Clown does this. There's no real reason. There's no backstory. There's no reason for him to do his mayhem. And some of it is really brutal. Brutal, cruel, unprovoked. I mean, at least even with the Saw films are kind of gruesome. But at least with the Saw films, what I like about the Saw series is there's at least some kind of a method to the madness. There's a reason, when you see the Saw films, you'll know what I mean. There's a reason why those things are happening. There's no reason why Art's going wild like this. And that's what Terrifier really is. Now, some of the gruesome scenes are really unbearable, I'm sure, for some. And even I was getting a little disturbed by them. Now, the most excruciatingly gory scene I'm going to describe to you. If you don't want to hear it, shut the video off or, go ahead. But Art the Clown actually hangs a naked woman upside down, takes out his hacksaw, and saws her in half from the crotch to the scalp. It wasn't easy for me to say, but it wasn't easy for me to watch. And it leaves me thinking, what the heck am I watching this for, But as I say, and this comes from a person who also has watched stuff from like, I forget his name, Herschel Gordon Lewis, who did stuff like Wizard of Gore and the Gore Girls. And I don't like Gore Girls or Wizard of Gore either because they're just gore for gore's sake. At least in something like Blood Feast, there's a little bit more of a story. At least in 2000 Maniacs from Herschel Gordon Lewis, there's a little bit more of a setting and a story. I think that's what was missing here. Now, if some of you people go for this to just see a sick killer clown, just dismembering people and brutally slicing and dicing for no reason that you can discern, knock yourselves out. I think that's kind of what was missing from this film. There's a saying out there, a term for films like this called torture porn. And I've never liked that term because it makes it like you're getting your rocks off kind of on these movies. And that's not what I do. I like to be afraid and I guess terrified and think, wow, these people are in peril. But this is just a mess of ugliness and gruesomeness. It's like even in the films, the Hostel films, Hostel, which means like a hotel. These films were about torturing, but what I kind of like more, forget the torture in those films, what I kind of was more creeped out by was the idea that those Hostel films had a reason, a kind of club that people joined. I don't want to talk all about the Hostel films here, but what I'm trying to say is there was more of a background and a reason to get us to the torture stuff. This is just for its own sake, if I'm making any sense to some of you. Some of you who don't get these films at all will think it makes no sense when I'm trying to rationalize the two. But like the Friday the 13th films, the Freddy Krueger films, the Michael Myers films, they seem more fun somehow. This is just really, really, depraved crap. Um, but I want to talk about one other thing that I did appreciate about the film. The film is shot very grindhouse-like, very gritty, very grungy. I like the look of the film. I think that worked. And I also like the feeling of isolation and desolation. And why I say that is because the whole film takes place at night in a dilapidated, rundown, broken down apartment building that's crumbling apart. One of the characters is a pest exterminator that's exterminating the rats, and that kind of makes for a good setting in this kind of film. And I just like that the hour, the time and place. There's also a warehouse, an old warehouse that's kind of like being uh, torn apart and coming down and messed up looking. And between that and the time, as I say, I don't know, early morning, wee morning hours, gave me the feeling that these few handful of people, there's just a few characters in this film, not many. I mean, maybe 4 or 5 characters in here. These characters are all alone. Gives me the feeling, because of how it's shot and the time it's set in, that nobody else is alive. It's almost like the whole planet is desolate. There's just these people in peril in their little time away from everything in the middle of the night. That feeling I like. But other than the way the film is shot, grungy, and the isolation feel, and that first early scene in the pizza shop, I don't really have much value for this film at all. But proceed at your own peril. Having said that, the reason I saw this film was there was a guy who hangs out at my record store, and this guy brings in movies that he burns on DVD-Rs of popular newer movies, and he made me a copy of a few recent horror movies. I hear horror's making a comeback. There's Terrifier, which I should say is only the first one, because there's another one, Terrifier 2, that just came out last year, and that's supposedly 2.5 hours. And I'm going to watch that as well, because the person from my store, he also made me Terrifier 1, Terrifier 2. He made me a film called Megan, that you know about, and a film called Smile, all new horror films. I'm going to be checking them out. But yeah, I'm going to do Terrifier 2 next, folks, but this film, believe me, it's not one I'd have to recommend. So, okay, but you get the picture. See ya.